Hello, my name is Mark Fishkin, and I am the director and the founder of the California Film Institute and the Mill Valley Film Festival. And on behalf of the entire organization, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this special conversation with the director of Falling, Viggo Mortensen. We also have with us today Lance Henriksen, the award-winning actor. I'd like to remind our viewers that Falling is part of the Mill Valley Film Festival contender season and is eligible for the 2021 Academy Awards. Falling is scheduled to be released on Friday, February 5th. Viggo and Lance will be in conversation with Scott Mantz. Scott is the recipient of this ICG Publicists Guild Press Award. He is also a longtime film critic, host, Q&A moderator, and Emmy-nominated producer. He is a member of the Broadcast Film Critics Association and the Producers Guild of America. Scott, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for that very kind intro, Mark. And once again, it is an absolute honor and a pleasure to be moderating this conversation for Falling for the Mill Valley Contenders series. My name is Scott Mantz. I'll be steering the conversation. Joining us, we have the legend that is Lance Henriksen. Lance Henriksen, thank you so much for joining our conversation today.
Oh, you're welcome, man. You're welcome.
Also joining us, we have actor, director, writer, producer, poet, musician, Key Grip Craft Services, Viggo Mortensen. Bravo, congratulations, and welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Okay, well, first I want to start off by saying, well, happy anniversary, because it was a year ago on January 31st, that this film, Falling, had its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival. And, I want to start off with Viggo. Just what was it like to get the reaction that you got, especially being in a very, very crowded theater full of people?
It was remarkable.
You were there at the first screening, Viggo.
Oh, really? You were at that? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, it was Friday the 31st, I remember. And I was a little concerned the days leading up to it. We were the closing night movie, and I was kind of alarmed because, as happens in film festivals, turns out, the industry people and most of the press leaves town by the time that, so you have this honor of being the closing night, premiere, the last big premiere. And so I was a little nervous, will anybody be there? And it was packed. There were people hoping to get in that didn't get in, I think. And it was remarkable. It was this very same theater where we premiered Captain Fantastic. So I'd already been in that theater. Great sound system, huge screen. And we had a lot of the cast there. It was wonderful. It was, and the audience reaction was amazing. I mean, it was really enthusiastic and very emotional, which was really felt great. And to be up on stage with everyone, I mean, I remember it very clearly. I'm sure you do too, Lance.
Oh, it was a standing ovation.
Yes, it was.
I've been on Broadway and I know what it looks like, standing ovation. I had to turn away because I hadn't seen it with an audience. And I was so moved at their reaction. I had to turn toward the wall. And Viggo turned me back around, but it was.
He had tears in his eyes, I have to say. Sorry to out you on that. And then the Saturday and Sunday, the final weekend after that big premiere, there were two more screenings, one in Park City and then on Sunday in Salt Lake. And we went to those two and packed. They stayed, the Q&As were extended and really, again, emotional, personal observations by the audience. So the thing you never know until you show it to the public is that regular audiences, because these were not industry audiences, they were people from the area, all kinds of people, men, women, different ages, really involved, and they didn't leave, that doesn't always happen either. Sunday was remarkable because it was Super Bowl Sunday. And I thought, Salt Lake City, Super Bowl, I'm going to be all by myself there. It was full and they all stayed. And I said to them, you guys must not be sports fans or something. Are you I mean, are you just cinephiles or what's the deal? And they said, no, we made a choice to miss the Super Bowl. I said, well, thank you very much. We're doubly honored. So it was a great, what I learned at Sundance, which seems like 100 years ago now, was that the movie works with the public, that audiences would gravitate toward it. Because some people had said before, well, it's a complex story structure. It's not a story that resolves in an orthodox way. It's very hard hitting in some ways. Lance's character is no holds barred. Maybe it's more of a European movie, so forth. And it has done very well in Europe, where it has come out already. But what I saw there was an American audience, an all-American audience, really got it as well. So I had no worries about it. And knowing that makes me, I'm still nervous about it, but it makes me a little nervous about this coming Friday, the 5th, when the movie's going to be released to the public in the US and Canada.
There's another element too. It showed at the Macau International Film Festival.
Oh yeah.
They loved that movie. And this is an American film. I mean, it's
in Asia,
to their culture, to Asia. It was amazing. I mean, they just loved the movie.
Lance won, he won't tell you, but Lance won Best Actor there. They gave him Best Actor at that festival.
Bravo, congratulations. Well deserved. I got to tell you, Lance.
I applaud myself. I wasn't even there. I didn't do a Zoom or anything.
Well, Lance, I got to say, I have been a massive fan for as long as I've really been watching movies. I mean, I was there in 77 when I saw like Close Encounters of the Third Kind with you. And of course, you know, Terminator, Aliens, you know, you name it. But this role for you, like you've never done anything like this before. Like how does it feel to like have the role of a lifetime and to give the performance of your career? Like, how did it feel to really take this character on, especially since, let's face it, Willis is a tough person to like.
Well, it's a little bit like walking across the Grand Canyon on a cable. That's what it's like. I mean, I think Viggo's script is so powerfully written and so clear that what I had to do, I have a past that lends itself to doing that movie. I do. And I'm not talking about an actual Willis past. I'm talking about my past. Mm-hmm. So it's separate, but he had written such a clear direction that I don't know about other people. Scott, I can't say that if you got it and you could play it because you had the script.
No. Nobody could have done what you did, man. Honestly, I can't imagine anybody taking it to where you did. I mean, the reason I was hoping that you would say yes, that you would want to play this role, is having seen your previous movies. You're a very honest actor with a great presence and a long career, 50 years, 70 movies or something. It doesn't matter what the movie has been, how small a performance, I mean, in terms of running time, screen time, I'm always drawn to you. I always believe your character, no matter how incredible and strange everything around you is. You're riveting, you know, and you're a truthful actor. So I knew you would surprise us and surprise people with what you would do with Willis, but I had no idea you would take it to where you did. I mean, it's beautiful performance. So there is no one else that could have done what you did, frankly.
Thank you for what you said.
I want to ask you, Viggo, when did you get the epiphany that you had to write this, and how long did it take you to get to that final draft screenplay?
I wrote it quite fairly quickly, actually, much quicker than I've written other screenplays. I've been trying to make a movie as a director for about 25 years. I've written several screenplays and I've raised some of the money, but never enough. Even with Falling, it took us a few times and about 4+ years before we got enough money, just enough to shoot. It was right after my mother's funeral. And when someone dies who you care a lot about, especially your mother, you know, I loved and I continue to love my mother. Everything's very immediate, very present. Images of her at different times in her life, as you remembered her, from photographs, from your own memories, stories about her, all these things. It was very present. And then as time passes after someone like that you care about dies, memory fades a little bit, or you move on, other things fill your mind. I didn't want to move on in a way. I wanted to keep that flame lit. I wanted to keep that wound, I guess, open a little bit of the how much I missed her and all that. And so I put it into a story. The story ended up being a fiction, but there's a character in our story that's somewhat peripheral. I mean, you see her often in flashbacks. It's Gwen, and that's modeled after my mother, played by Hannah Gross. She's perfect. She's really beautiful in the movie. Really great job. And it was kind of honoring my memory of her, the things I've learned from her. And the more I thought about her, I thought about my father. So I started writing about her, and then it became a fiction. You know, I felt freer to just make a story up using those feelings about my mom and events from childhood and adolescence, and more recent aspects of the story, which are very familiar to me and my brothers. That's why I dedicate the movie to Charles and Walter Mortensen, my brothers. And that's dementia, which Lance's character Willis suffers from. And I've had a lot of experience. There's been a lot of dementia on both sides of my family, both my parents, stepfather, you know, grandparents, aunts, uncles. I mean, a lot of it. And I've been in it, seen it up close, the evolution of that disease from different people, even in a caregiver role. So that was something that my brothers would also recognize, aspects of Lance's performance. And Lance, I mean, although he did say to me a couple times, because the text was complicated and it was a real jigsaw puzzle for an actor, really a big challenge. Sometimes it was exhausting just trying to solve these really tricky, very emotional scenes. He said to me, I don't know, I think maybe by the end of the shoot, I'm going to end up with dementia. Just, and I said, I don't think so. You're sharp as a tack, and it is.
I don't do that. I said, I think I'll quit acting after this.
Yes. Yeah. No, you had a couple.
What I mean, it's like,
we had a couple low points.
Yeah.
We had some low points, but we got through it. No, and it's remarkable what he did with that. I mean, he just the way he goes in and out of mental states, the way he listens to people. It's a remarkable performance.
He forgave me for those comments, by the way. He did. He forgave.
I understood them even in the moment. In fact, I shared. I think perhaps you'll remember there was one, the lowest point of the shoot probably. We were standing outside between setups of scenes, talking, and Lance sort of mused. He looked out at the snowy landscape. And he said, you know, this is it for me. I think I've reached the end of the road. I'll never act again. This is just, you know, it's too much. And I said, yeah, this directing thing was a nice idea. I wanted to try it. Now I know. Let's just get through this and then call it quits. That was one day, though. The next day we come back and
that was 10 minutes of one day. The rest, and we turned around and went back in and started working.
That's right.
It was so cold. It was like it matched our down moment. It matched.
Yeah, true. It was very cold.
Yeah.
Lance, I want to ask you, listen, like I said, you know, Willis is a very complex character, and like, what was your approach? What were your points of connection to get to this guy and to overcome some of the acting challenges that you would be facing? How did you get past them?
You know, once the train has left the station, there's no stopping until you get to the end. You know, I mean, I love that image, because don't say yes if you're not willing to go on the journey. And so I think some of it was certainly I'm from New York, and we were broke my whole childhood. And then I kept getting put in schools, you know, because I was a little couldn't handle me, because I didn't know what was going on around me. You know, it's like I could tell you a story that would sound like a pity pot, you know, like, but I'm telling you, it was a rough childhood. And so I've always had, I don't want to BS because I'd rather not tell you than BS you. You know what I mean? But trust me, I had enough happen to me in my childhood that I will always be influenced by that. And I know exactly what they are, you know, but I mean, I had some sweet times too. I met girls, you know, and had that, you know, I had good stuff, but it was a rough childhood. But one of the things that did happen, I have to say, is I used to escape into movies. I was shining shoes, give my mother half the money, and I would disappear into a theater. I mean, sometimes back when I was a kid, you could watch the same movie. They ran constantly. There was no intermission. There was no anything like that. So you could sit there and get lost in that world, escape out of what was really happening in my life. You know, so I don't know. You know, there's a lot of spiritual luck involved in the the artistry of movie making and plays and the arts of painting and poetry and all these things. But since I had no school, I had to approach it from the outside. At the outside of every event going on around me, I would be knocking on the door saying, can I get in here? You guys look fun. You guys look great, you know, and I felt happy around artists. So anyway, that's the long story of how over the years I've gathered all the good stuff that I could, you know. And so when Viggo offers me a movie that's going to be this huge challenge, and we made it through. It's, to me, it's still a miracle. But
Yeah.
the source is Viggo's writing and his vision. And so I was on the journey.
Yeah, Viggo, I want to ask, you know, you talked about how it was a 4-year journey to get a green light on the film. Like, you're Viggo Mortensen. What was the challenge? How did you get to the point where you were able to get to that green light?
Well, it's a complicated matter to get any movie made, really.
Yeah.
And it's particularly difficult, as you know, to make independent movies, because most of the time the stories that are told in independent film, where the budget's lower, so you have there's a little less pressure that it has to be a cookie cutter, you know, a formulaic story that's worked before, because there's so much money at stake. It has to be a proven model that you sort of reconfigure and tells a very familiar story again somehow. In the case of independent film stories, they tend to be somewhat unorthodox many times, and they don't resolve in a predictable way necessarily. And I knew that this story in particular was, the way it's structured, it was a very ambitious undertaking storytelling wise. The way it moves back and forth in time, a lot of characters, and just as a challenge, a production challenge on a low budget, you know, all those kids with their limited hours, shooting in winter, limited hours. There was a lot of challenges. And you know, even if over the years I've become a relatively familiar face to some potential investors and the public to some degree, I had never made a movie as a director, so there's no proof. I completely get the reticence. And so, but I've just kept trying over all those years. And with Falling, we just kept trying. I have to say, Lance was the first actor cast, and he hung in there through thick and thin. I mean, when we finally, the third go around, I called Lance. I wasn't completely truthful. I called Lance one day and I said, you know, spring, you know, before the winter where I intended to shoot it. I said, Lance, we're finally gonna make the movie. And he goes, really? he was kind of shocked. I hadn't talked to him for months, and he figured it was one of those scripts that just are never going to be made. And I said, "Yep, we're going to make the movie." And I said, "Are you still with us? Are you still available?" And he went, "Yeah." And I said, "That didn't sound like terribly enthusiastic, but that's okay. I mean, if you don't want to do it, I mean, it's not forced labor. It's not an obligation. I mean, we have no contract, and you certainly, I would never want something to do something they didn't want to do." He said, "No, no, no. It's just going to be difficult." I said, "No, I know. It's one of the most challenging characters that I can imagine if you play it truthfully, which I know is what you would do. It's tough." And he goes, "No, it's not it's not how it's written, which is difficult. Yes, it's where I'm gonna have to go. These things Lance was referring to." And I later got to know more, all these stories, which were, I mean, horrifying stories in some way that he's overcome. He's moved on, and he can look at them even with amusement at times. And so I said, "Oh, okay." So what I lied to him about is I didn't have any more money than I had had the day before when I called him. We're going to start. And what I did is I decided to invest some time and money, limited amount. And I called up the cinematographer, Marcel Ziskin, and our production designer, Carol Spear. I said, "Let's go find this farm and these places. Bring the camera. I want images from spring, summer, and fall. We'll make several trips. I want this library of images that we're going to use very specifically for memories, the subjective memories of Lance's character, my character, and to some degree, Laura Linney's character. And we're just going to start." But I hadn't had the money. We just started, and I thought, let's act like we're making a movie. Let's just start, and maybe it'll be contagious, and somebody will go, "Hey, look, it looks like they're making a movie. Let's go see what's going on." And that is kind of what happened. I did finally get an associate, a Canadian producer, and then I got a British producer, so it became a Canadian-European co-production. And we eventually got the money and kept going and casting and crew, and we were all set to go. And then not long before we started shooting, the first week of March of 2019, the Canadian co-producer came over to me and said, "Well, I know you wanted 7 weeks. As you know, you're only getting 5, but you seem like you're really prepared. The crew, everybody, we're all set." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. We're going to make it work somehow. We're going to do it. We have a good plan." He goes, "But unfortunately, you only have money for 2 weeks." I said, "That we can't do. There's no way." "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, it's coming, we think, the rest of the money, but thanks to you being in it, among other things, which wasn't my original intention. But that's all we got right now. So do you want to wait till next year?" I said, "No way, no way. We got everybody here. It couldn't be a better cast. I mean, it's perfect. We got to start. We got the snow. We got everything. We're here. Let's do it." And he goes, "Okay, well, just know that if 2 weeks from now we'll have to stop cold shooting if you don't have it." I completely forgot that because we got so into it and just bonded with the crew and started, shooting. 2 weeks later, the producer came over and said, "Hey, you got a minute?" I said, "Yeah, let me just finish the shot and, one more take." And then say, "Yeah, what's up?" And he said, "Well, you guys can finish." I go, "Finish what?" He goes, "Well, you can finish shooting." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You can finish like the whole shoot, the movie." I said, "Well, of course we are. It's going really well. Why wouldn't we?" He goes, "Now you have the money to finish." Oh, right. I completely forgotten. So that's how that happens a lot in independent film. So we were lucky. I consider myself fortunate that we got
walking on a cable across, across a canyon. That's what I mean. So many things were like that. I mean, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. But you'll find that's common in independent film. I mean, it happens a lot.
Absolutely, yes. And listen, the fact that you wound up acting in it when you originally weren't going to, do you think that helped get that funding?
It did. It got the first of the money came in, I think in part because said I would be in it, and that helped. And I was a little reticent because I thought I got enough to do without, having written it and wanting to direct. First time directing, I wanted to really give my full focus to the crew and the cast, obviously. But we prepared it so well that it wasn't an issue because we knew what our plan of action was each day. And in a way, it allowed me to continue the relationship that Lance and I were already building. You know, we had gotten to know each other in the previous couple of years and waiting for the financing, and really worked on the script, right? And it was nice to be not just directing or trying to facilitate a situation, an atmosphere in which Lance could work freely and do his best work, but that I was in the mix with him as an actor too, because so many of my scenes are with him, pretty much all of them, that you know, we had to figure out these difficult scenes together, and I think that helped in a way. So it ended up being the right thing to do in many ways.
Lance, I want to ask you, like, okay, all the directors you've worked with over the years, tell us about Viggo, the director. What is Viggo like as a director? Does he do a lot of takes? Does he encourage risk and improv? Take us through Viggo's process as a director.
There's a saying that says, you have so many jobs that you're the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral. I mean, he had his wings around the whole production. I mean, I'll give you an example. In order to make everybody feel like they're part of a family, which is this movie, and if you get an idea, you got to do it right away. But he went out and got flags from every country that the crew was their nationality, and they were 4 by 5 foot, and he strung them all together between the trucks every day. Norwegian flags, you know, British flags, Canadian flags, the whole thing, everybody. American flag, I was looking for that when it was there, though I wouldn't know, but anyway. But so then he would take all of his family pictures and put them in the makeup trailer that everybody visited, because they would get warm coffee there and it was freezing. And then they started adding their pictures in to his family's pictures. And so amazing feeling, you know, of accomplishment that everybody felt part of this. And it was subtle and it happened, but he did it. People will say they're going to do shit like that, excuse my French, but they don't often, you know, they don't follow through. And he does, and he did. So there were times when they were so rooting for us, everybody. It's like the guy that comes in and says, well, you got the money. And I think what he did was saw some of the dailies and said, oh yeah, you got the money. You got the money.
Well, we were very lucky with our crew. I mean, you never know how that's going to go. I knew they were all very skilled, but right in the first few days, you know, we had some difficult scenes, including the big sort of blowout argument that we have towards the end of the picture, just because of logistics, locations, weather. We had to do it in the first week. Ideally, you would wait, you know, a few weeks to do a scene like that, but we had to do it early on. The third day, we started doing that, and the crew was really affected by it, and we felt they were really with us, and from that was a turning point. And
yeah.
I mean, for actors, when the crew, when it's not just another job and they're personally involved, emotionally involved, it really helps you. It frees you. It makes you feel braver. It makes you feel free to take chances.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're playing on your home field. They're on your side. And as a director, it was the same thing. It was like, oh my God, it's great. We are a team. It's not just a job. And do you remember that when we did that really hard scene?
That was fight scene. And we had tried it one day, and then we said, all right, that was like a good rehearsal, but we've got to go further. And so a few days later, we took it on again, and then we nailed it. And I remember we were so drained at the end of that scene. It took hours, you know, like it does. And I remember walking around the corner. It was a very small house. And I turned the corner, and there's Video Village there. The crew had piled in to watch us do that scene. And some of them were crying. I mean, it was like, whoa, yeah. I mean, what can you say? That tells it all. It really does.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful.
From then on, it was sailing. We even went to California and stole shots in the ocean. It was great. We were, we were trying to get out of this as much as we could,
Oh, that blowout scene. I mean, and John Peterson is just so patient with Willis until that moment, and just all comes to a head. And it's the movie absolutely sticks the landing with that scene. But Viggo, I want to ask about the look of the film, and you talk about your cinematographer, Marcel Ziskin. I want to ask about the production design. And also I want to ask you, how did you find that house?
Well, we were looking, that would have been probably July, we hadn't found it right away. We looked at a lot of farms, and what normally happens when you shoot a movie and you want a specific look for everything, you often find you'll use the interior or different interiors, even of different houses, the exterior of another house, another barn from another. You want the ideal sort of, and you make it all seem like it's the same place. And I was saying that we weren't going to get all the weeks I'd hoped. I said, we're not going to have time. Even in summer, it would be hard to race around from place to place. But in the dead of winter with snow, we're just not going to have time. We need to find a farm that has it all. And so that took longer, but we found it. And as we were looking, we kept filming things, fields, forests, and a lot of the footage that you see in these memory sequences. And when we found that farm, we went inside, and it was perfect inside, and it was perfect outside. And then we went to look at the barn, and we asked them, could we dress this so that horses could be in here? Because it was basically a hay barn. And we could put some stalls in and we'll remove them and so forth. And they said, sure. They were very amenable, very friendly. And it was just perfect. When we found it, we knew, just like when you find the right actor for each part, you just know, whether it's, in this cast, from the 4-year-old Grady McKenzie, little blonde boy, the duck hunter, who plays me when I'm a little kid, right up to Lance. Everybody, for this particular story, all these actors, most of whom people might not recognize, they're mostly actors from Canada, one from Iceland who plays Lance younger. It's a mixture. It's the all-star cast. It's the ideal cast for this particular story. We were fortunate. So, and when you find them, but that's how we found the place.
Lance, I want to ask, you talk about like preparation and the challenges to get into character, but when you go this deep for a character like Willis, and you're so immersed, and then you have your last day of filming, how do you get out of it? Is it like just a light switch goes on, or did you find that playing Willis took a few days to kind of let him go?
Months. I didn't hear from him for a long time.
No, what happened was I said to him, afterwards we all wrapped, we put all away the equipment and everything else, and we all went, that all of the crew, that followed us and were in LA. And we went to a bar and had a sort of see you later drink, see you guys. And I said, Rico, you're not going to hear from me for a while. I have to curl up in a ball. I saw myself as like a badger, tucked into the dirt. I'll be back, but
you had to recover.
And meanwhile, as tired as he is from all the work, he goes to England to edit the film. And then they fly me over and I do some voice work. And I thought the whole setup that he set up in England was just amazing. Those guys were really bright.
Yeah, they were good.
They asked me to do things that no other director or production has ever asked me to do. And it was amazing. It's so subtle, but without it, it just wouldn't have that texture that you need, like taking a breath before you talk. Because if you take a deep breath before you talk, the audience is going to know you're going to talk next. Nobody's ever said that to me. And I thought, wow, I'll never forget it. It was so great, man.
Well, I didn't feel tired until the very, very end of editing, really. I mean, I was tired, but I really enjoyed it, I have to say. I mean, I know it would be difficult to direct a movie, especially a movie structured the way this one was. Um, but it was more of an inspiration and education, a great collective effort, which is what I love most about movie storytelling, is the collective aspect of taking a story from the page to the screen. It's a complex journey. And I've had some really good examples, directors in my career, and I've seen really good crews directed really well, where there's good communication and where it flows and everybody's talents come to bear. And it was, I mean, even though I was tired, the whole editing process, plus seeing the performances, especially yours, Lance, I have to say, all those things I'd seen from the best seat in the house, acting with you, those moments, those pauses, those unusual line readings, the slipping in and out of different mental states, that just uncompromising approach to the role that you had, seeing those every day in the editing room, it was a pleasure. It was wonderful to keep working on the story.
I wasn't telling you that I'm going to be gone for a while, blaming you. I was just so,
No, I know.
my ass was dragging. It really was.
Understood.
Well, I want to ask Viggo, so talk about great directors you've worked with: Peter Jackson, Jane Campion, Tony Scott, Ridley Scott, obviously David Cronenberg, who was in this movie.
Yeah.
And then you talk about, like, you were talking about how, it took a while for you to get this project going as a director, and that you had tried other times. So, all right, Viggo, you're there on set, your first day, ready to shoot your very first scene, and say action or whatever. Sometimes, like Clint Eastwood says, anytime you're ready. Like, what was that day like for you? What was that moment like for you when you said action for your very first time on your directorial debut?
It was pretty relaxed. I mean, I hadn't slept the night before. I was nervous, but that always happens to me as an actor too. The night before, plus we had an issue where in the days just previous to shooting, there had been snow, and I was like, we're pushing into the beginning of March. I'm like, oh, we need snow for at least a week and a half to cover all those scenes where you see the snow, and it had melted. And then it got really cold on the Saturday nights into Sunday, but Sunday there was no snow. I was like, okay, it'll just be this gray brown. That's all right. I would really prefer there to be snow, and then Sunday evening, I sort of made dinner. I sort of reviewed plans for the next day. Okay, I've left no stone unturned together with the crew. I should just relax and go to sleep, but I couldn't. I was anxious, and I was also worried about the snow. And then after I ate, I looked out the window and suddenly I could see snowflakes. So then the rest of the night, I was just kept going outside on the terrace. I'd get out of bed and I'd put on a coat and I'd look. I was just lying in bed. I couldn't sleep anyway. So I ended up watching it snow all night, basically. And then I got in the car and just drove to work. And when I got there, everybody was there. Everything looked the way it should, what we'd planned. And I remembered what I'd heard from David Cronenberg, what I'd seen them do right. We'd already gone through the preparation, and what I'd learned from the best directors was you can't prepare too early or too much. There's no such thing. And we'd done all that. We'd done everything we could. The other thing I'd learned was that a good idea can come from anybody at any time. And I said that. I said, look, before we start, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this story. I want to tell it together. I have a very specific idea of, what I want to do from the script I wrote. But we have a great team. And what I've learned from the best directors is just that any one of you can come up with an idea, a question, a suggestion, and I'm going to listen to it. I'll never take it as a threat to my authority or, some kind of subversive thing. It's welcome. Please speak up. Don't tell me tomorrow or the next day about your great idea you have about something we're shooting today, because it'll be too late. You know, we don't have time to come back and do it. And they did. And the first day was really great. It was super cold, and we were shooting outside. It was Lance had to be outside all day pretty much in the snow, and it was kind of hard. And we shot to the last glimmer of light and just got our day, and it was a good start. We felt elated. We did some difficult scenes and we got it done. And from then on, it just picked up momentum, and the crew did make suggestions, and the actors made suggestions. And, you know, 2 days later, we were doing that harrowing scene where we had to kind of leave it all on the field. And we knew that scene needed to be uncomfortable for us if it was going to be uncomfortable for the audience. But like we've said, we had everybody with us, and, you know, so I was anxious, but I wasn't nervous in a way that was debilitating. I was just excited. I was just so happy. I know how difficult it is to get movies greenlit and started shooting, and we were doing it finally, you know, so I was very happy.
There's another fun thing. It was, I remember first days of shooting and you know, near the barn corral, and we had nowhere to get warm. I mean, it was like freezing. But Viggo would turn to me, I was laying in the snow, and my horse comes over and nibbles on my face, and he goes, and I thought, we got it. Okay, we can get out of here. And he went, hey, Lance, you got one more in you? Got one more in you? And I said,
because he was so cold, he was shaking a little, and I wanted just for a moment the illusion that, well,
you know, so
no movement, yeah.
And we did do more. And then we were in the ocean. He said, used the same phrase on me. The water was like ice. We were standing in the ocean, and he was behind the cameraman because a blind wave would come and knock all of us down, you know, so you had to be pretty careful. Yeah. And he goes, you got one more in you? Because the sun was doing something great with the clouds, you know, over and over. Beautiful. So, but anyway, there's
you were a trooper. You were a trooper.
Huh?
You were a trooper throughout, I have to say.
Oh, no, so were you. So was everybody. I mean, it was like, yeah, you develop this language, which means I really need it, but I'm not going to demand it. But have you got one more in you? I mean, it's like, I loved it. I loved the shoot. I really did. I mean,
last question for you, Viggo. You know, when you get to the end of the film, how did you choose for A Little Late to be the music playing over the credits?
Well, A Little Late is a song by the band Skating Polly. It's two sisters originally from Oklahoma. They live in Washington State now. Peyton Big Horse and Kelly Mayo. And I know them a little bit, and it's a song from a record called Fuzz Steelicum, and it's a beautiful song. But as I was composing the music, which is piano based for the most part, for the score of the movie, and this song, it is also piano based, and the lyrics are uncanny. They're almost like they're made for the movie. And so I asked them, and fortunately said we could use that. And it's kind of sums up everything and lets you kind of decompress after a tough journey in a way. Absolutely. As you're watching the credits. I think it's a good way to, you know, recover before you have to get up and leave the theater. And it's a beautiful song. And actually that song, we made a video, which is like a sort of unorthodox. It's a making of, you know, showing behind the scenes stills and footage and scenes. And it's a song that lasts about 5.5 minutes. That's up on the internet now. The song's called A Little Late. If you look up, I don't know, Skating Polly, Falling video, something, it's beautiful, that piece. And it's also obviously on the soundtrack record, which has all the music from the movie, some extended versions of some of those songs. That's also out as of last Friday. It's up on, I don't know, iTunes, Bandcamp, TuneCore, anywhere where music is streaming or sold, you can find it. The soundtrack record's called Music for Falling. And if you look that up, I suppose you'll find it somewhere.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I just want to thank you on behalf of everyone at the Mill Valley Contenders series. bravo to you. Bravo to everyone on the making of Falling. It is in theaters and on demand on Friday, February 5th. Please be sure to tell everyone to see this movie because like we've been talking about this whole conversation, this is an independent film, needs all the help it gets. It can get to get people to watch it and see it, and do spread the word. Lance Henriksen, Viggo Mortensen, thank you so very much. And please continue to stay safe.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you to the audience at Mill Valley. We can't see you. I hope next time it's in person, but anybody who's just watched the movie and just listened to us talk about it, thank you so much for giving Falling a chance. And I concur. Stay safe, take care of yourselves and those around you.